I really thank you very much for giving us the time. Welcome to the Nerdy Basement. My name is John Ramos. I want to present you guys Jeffrey Allard and Alrik Bursell here, the producer and director of the film Alternate that is going to be releasing in September. I'm really stoked about the film. I watched it 2 times in the screener, guys. Just to because at the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, I think I missed a couple of details in the film, and then I watched it again, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see this last time. I didn't see this last time, and then I'm like, okay, this film is really interesting. Um, going further, I wanted to ask, Alrik, so what inspired you to make this film? To give us this story.
So I had written or made a short film called Strange Thing that had like a big monster in it, and I was trying to write the feature length version of that as to be my first feature film. And I really quickly realized that there was no way this was going to happen with a first time filmmaker, like a $10 million budget movie, like with a monster and aliens and all this stuff. It's just like I'm like dreaming. So I was like, okay, I have to think of something that's going to be like small and like contained enough that I can actually raise the money to make the movie. And the other movie also has a portal in it to another dimension. So I was thinking, like, what's the scariest thing that could be on the other side of the portal that isn't a monster? And then I just thought of it like being the worst version of myself. So that was sort of where we came up with that idea. And then I wrote the ending to the movie first, which I know you've seen, is very crazy, gruesome. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. And then from there, I wrote the rest of the movie to get to that ending that we have.
Okay. So wanted to ask you this because I'm a very big fan of Lovecraftian horror. So I love any type of movie that has like that vibe or that are based off like H.P. Lovecraft. I did find the film having that type of like vibe, not like fully, but it had that vibe due to like the portal and finding the main character finding himself as another version. Was that intentional in the film?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan necessarily, but I'm a humongous Twilight Zone fan. So this was very inspired by like the old Twilight Zone episodes, and I just really love like the what if question in science fiction of like, okay, what if there was a portal that you discovered? Like, would you go through it? What would be on the other side? How would you deal with that? And I think like a lot of those sort of scenarios can lead to like really great stories and really interesting examination of ourself and like, our society and our place in the world, and so I kind of use the portal and presenting Jake with this perfect version of his life as a way to like really like wonder, like, would you do that? Like, would you try to take something that you've been wanting your whole life that you didn't work for, like that you don't really deserve, And so that was sort of where I really wanted to go with the story once I kind of figured out that I wanted it to be, two different versions of the same person.
Okay, that's amazing. So I have a question for both of you can answer, but this more directly to Jeffrey. So as a producer of this film, I know I have seen your slate and it's very, very impressive, your slate of films that you have. But as the producer, what were some challenges that needed to overcome to deliver the final version of Alternate for to bring in next in a couple of weeks?
So the main challenge of producing the movie was twofold. Firstly, this is one of the lower budget movies I've produced, so we had very little money available to us. Number one. Number two, we had to go and raise that money, and that's always a challenge. So those are the two biggest challenges. We did this movie. Alrik is a Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area filmmaker. I am too. I don't shoot, of the 20 movies that I've shot, only a handful, a couple have been in the San Francisco Bay Area. I wanted to shoot more. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get on board beyond the script itself. But the challenges with doing this solo budget, we shot a good portion of the sets were at my house. We converted my carport into a set. And so everything that's in the basement of Jake and Alt Jake, that's actually my house. And then I asked one of my buddies from high school if we could shoot at his house. So whenever you see the practical house, That's at my friend's house. We cooked for everybody. People were sleeping at our houses. So it was just a really low budget, challenging shoot. And we had to deal with we don't get that much rain. And of course it rained quite a bit during our shoot. So all those things together made this a very challenging shoot, but it was a lot of fun and really happy with what we finally, are delivering to the audience out there. I'm really proud of this movie and what Alrik did for very little money and resources.
Okay. So, Alrik, so let's talk about Jake and the idea of confronting your idolized self. Let's dive into that a little bit more. Because again, seeing how the film progresses, you do see how Jake, our main character, goes from being a very, I would say, stubborn filmmaker and going against himself of what he wants to do and what he wants to progress, and then seeing himself like in another dimension, I would say, as a successful filmmaker. So what can you tell us more about that?
Well, I feel like what I was trying to go for is like, Jake is his own worst enemy, regular Jake, right? Like he's always standing in his own way. Like he has all the ability within him to be successful and to do the things that he wants to do with his life, but he just keeps on making excuses for himself. He doesn't actually want to put in all the hard work in that's required to do it. Like he's all into like kind of these half measures. And then when it doesn't really work out the way that he wants it to, like he likes to blame things and like, oh, I didn't get into this film festival, so I'm not a success. Oh, I'm a failure because of this reason, like, oh, and you're making me like, go back and make money, so I can't do the thing I want to do. So he's always blaming other people for his own problems. And then, I think he really doesn't like himself. Like he really hates himself. And so when he sees this perfect version of himself, who's done all these things that he can't do and has achieved all these things that he hasn't been able to achieve, he basically feels like, well, I guess I just did it. I did it. So he like just tries to steal all that for himself. And like, he like feels entitled to the successes that he hasn't suffered or worked hard for at all. So I think in the end, it's like, he really hates himself and is ashamed of that hatred of himself, but doesn't really know how to process it any other way, but then to like, try to like, kind of just take things for himself and like steal it without actually, he doesn't really want to confront himself. Like he tries to hide his confrontation as best he can, but the other version like wants to meet him head on. So then he's like forced to confront him like, a couple of times throughout the movie. And it's like, a real hard thing for him. And in the end, he really just stabs himself in the back, Yeah.
Yeah. So Jeffrey, I wanted to know, being based off what you mentioned before, you did said that you guys were working very thoroughly on with the production due to the low budget, but were you involved with Alrik creatively on like when he was directing the film? Were you involved in like if you wanted to make some certain changes or anything, or gave some ideas?
No, so I run most of the business side of production, from managing crew to making sure people are paid, to dealing with locations, to dealing with the police that kept dropping by, things like that. And the main thing, I focused a lot on trying to keep us on schedule. We were originally a 15-day shoot. We ended up being 19, but it worked out eventually anyways. But creatively, early on, I might have given my 2 cents on the script and a couple of pointers. But outside of that, once we get into production, it's so frenetic. We just really had a minimal staff. And I took care of everything that was really non-creative and let Alrik, run the creative side.
Okay, so piggybacking on that, Jeffrey. So you just mentioned that you had a 15-day window to film, but it went over to an additional 4 days. How does that affect you as a producer? I needed to ask because it's not the first time that I hear this. That films are supposed to be recorded in a certain day amount, and then when it comes to the day, and then sometimes things happen, and then a couple of days additional have to be used to film. So you as the producer, how did it affect you in some way, or was it better in the final product?
Yeah. So what's most important is getting the film in the can. So if it takes a few extra days, you got to do it. You've gone that far. You just got to figure out how to make that work, with whether it's the cast, the crew, or the finances. And I haven't really told Alrik this, but a lot of my films go over by a day or two or three. So I can tell him that now. It wasn't the first time. It does happen. It's stressful, and you have to puzzle it all together. You have to figure out, because we were losing crew, even during the regular shoot. Since we're paying them, really scale type rates, a lot of them would work. Well, I got a bigger gig. I'm going to be gone for a few days. So that continued with the extra days. We just went around to the crew, who's going to be available. Locations were okay, since it was my house and my friend's house. And the actors were local as well. So we robbed Peter to pay Paul. So, we had to raise a little bit more money in the end to finish the film, but we knew we had enough money to get us through principal photography, even with those extra days. But it's stressful. It's stressful, but it's important. You just have to get it done. So that's what's most important.
I felt terrible. Let's put it that way. I was like, oh, I'm already failing, and we only shot one day. Oh God, But yeah, I mean, I feel like we kind of, we made sure that we didn't go over too much after that. Although we had one more overage at the very end that we couldn't avoid, and I'm really glad that we did it that way, because if we hadn't have pushed over one more day, it would have been a disaster.
Oh wow! So I just wanted to go ahead and ask both of you, do any of you have like a memorable like scene and I would say like a funny story while being on set? Because I just love the fact that you both work together so on and on in the film, so there has to be like a story behind the scenes while you guys were filming Alternate.
Well, I'll let Alrik talk about in front of the camera, because I'm always kind of juggling things behind the camera. But I'll tell you the things that really stick out in my mind. One of my good friends who loaned us his house and also did the catering, we were working, as you know, in this business, you're working 10, 11, 12-hour days. You've got to provide. We provided a breakfast, a lunch, and then oftentimes a second meal. But it would always come down to, I'd be with my buddy or have to call him up and say, dude, we're going over. And he wasn't in the film business, so he finally understood how important it is to feed people, feed them on time. But it was always pretty interesting when we would go over and have to provide a second meal, and watch my catering investor, executive producer get creative and take whatever he had in a very small kitchen, because we took over his house. And so he had like one burner, and we'd have to feed like 30 people. And we would just put tons of bacon in the oven, peanut butter sandwiches, eggs and milkshakes and things like that. And all sorts of food was coming out. And we had a pretty diverse palette within our crew too. We had from vegans to gluten-free to vegetarians to regular. So that was a challenge too.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember some late night chilies definitely came in handy a couple of times.
Yeah.
I also just remember Tony was always cooking, like no matter what was going on. Like we'd like wrap at like 2 a.m. or something, and I'd be like going into the back room to like look for something, and Tony's like got like 3 boilers going and cooking 3 or 4 things. I'm like, do you ever sleep, dude? Like, what's going on? Like, when are you sleeping? He's like, oh no, I gotta get this sauce ready. Oh, it's gonna be great. You're gonna love it for breakfast. So like, okay, thank you so much. So the one thing that I haven't talked about on any of the shows yet is because Jeff mentioned it rained a lot while we were shooting, and the last scene that we were shooting in the basement office, in Jake's regular basement office, because we basically had to shoot the 2 offices completely separately because they were the 2 big set builds we had, and we didn't have a big enough team to do 2 set builds at the same time. We didn't have enough space for that. We just had one carport, which had Jeff's carport that we turned into the basement office. So we were shooting the last of the regular bad looking office scenes. And there's a shot where Jake goes up the stairs to, like, alt Jake goes up the stairs to, like, you know, see what's going on upstairs. And like, he's like the first time that he's in his crappy office, like, you know, because he's used to being in his nice one. And Ed, our actor, is like going up and like peering and holding. And then we call a cut. And then he walks down, and then I kid you not 30 seconds later, the whole set burst down with water, just pouring all over down the steps that we'd made, our fake stairs. And like, if we had like called cut, like just 20 seconds later or something, he would have gotten completely soaked. He might have gotten like super sick. Like it would have been a disaster, because we still had more scenes to shoot that night. And it was like, oh God, like how lucky are we that that didn't land on him? Oh my God.
Because at that point, you know, halfway through the shoot, our lead actor, Ed, caught a really ferocious cold and really was sick towards the end of the shoot. And we had to kind of wrap early on that one night. At least there were a couple times and he was just down and out. So if he'd gotten soaked, I don't know what would have happened. But we had tarps all over the place and they were just bursting. It was torrential rain, which we don't ever, you know, we've been in this massive drought for so many years. And of course, during our shoot, we got a lot of rain. So.
Oh, wow. So Alrik, I have one scene that I would like to like dabble in for a while. So the first time that Jake like experiments with the portal, he goes ahead and enters the portal. He sees his you know, an alternate version of his office. And then it was really interesting that it got to me, because when I was watching the film, I was like, I bet that he's gonna do what anybody would do, put the portal in the computer and, you know, sneak their head inside just to see if it works. So so that whole scene is kind of like shocking for the main character and as well for the audience, because for myself, it was very interesting to see that from there, he notices that this is like a different counterpart of what he's living in the actual time. Well, in his timeline. How did you like put that into perspective while filming that scene?
Yeah, well, do you mean like how he actually physically shot it, or how like did I come up with the story beats for that to happen?
Yeah, exactly. How did it come up? The story beats of how did it happen? Yeah.
Okay, so that was a really hard scene because it was really long. You know, in the beginning, it was all this exploration of, you know, like what is he seeing? What is he understanding? How are we visually seeing this world that he's in? Like, what's the impact of it? And so we had a lot written of like all the different things that he reacts to and sees, and all the details of him turning on his computer or seeing this DVD rack with all the DVDs on there, and like picking up the Blu-ray for his movie and all this stuff. And so in the end, we had to really be very selective on what we decided to show, because we just didn't have all that much time to show everything. Like, we had to be really, like, you know, aware of the audience's time in this exploration and really keep it exciting, because there's no dialogue, there's no lines, there's nothing that happens in that scene. It's just him alone in this space. So I wanted to make sure that, like, not only did we get these important story beats across of like showing that, you know, his other self was going to be gone for a long period coming up, you know, so that's why he was looking at the computer. And then also to show that he brought it with him, that he actually has the portal, you know, because I think we showed it in close-ups and everything, but like, we really wanted to make sure that people understood that he had it. And then like for him to understand that he can get back, you know? And so that scene of him sticking his head through the computer and testing the portal and everything was really important, just to make sure that he could actually get back. And then also just so that we like can see him interact with it again. Cause it's always really fun when you see him go from one world to the other world and show the two worlds. Those were also hard to shoot because we had to, like, you know, basically whenever he goes through the portal, we have to do two different versions of it, where you take the computer away and then you have him going through like a C-stand that's got like a little bit of a barrier. And then that's like the markers for the visual effects team to replace the screen later. And so we had to do that on both ends. So it was like, you know, keeping good track of all the times we had to make sure that he got with the portal and make sure the performance matches on both sides was really a challenge.
So the film alternate leaves a very open ending, to be honest. Very gruesome open ending. So my question would be, by any chance, are we going to explore this once again, like in the future, seeing whether it's Jake again or some other protagonist, explore like another lifestyle, or probably go more in depth in the whole alternate dimension theory?
Yeah.
Well, let me just say two things. Firstly, creatively, I'll leave that to Alrik to decide if he wants to write an additional script. But it's usually the success of the film that'll dictate whether or not we have the motivation and the financial wherewithal to push forward. Unless Alrik wants to write the check, but maybe, he's up and comer, he's rising.
I will say I have lots of ideas for a sequel, lots of plans of like what happens to Alt Jake next, what the other Jakes may or may not be doing, because we know there's more than two. There's many different Jakes, many different Chris's, and different Peters as well. Like, as you see at the end of the movie, there's a scene with Peter discovering the portal, and so there was lots of other ideas of where these characters could go, and like kind of the idea of like, what does this multi-dimensional travel, like how does it impact the other dimensions, and I think that is a really fun idea that I want to play with, of like, like there's some good and some bad, like there's some more access to other people to get to different dimensions by, Jake doing what he's done, but then maybe there's a desire from Alt Jake to like end any kind of multidimensional travel whatsoever because it ruined his life. So like, I have some fun ideas that I'd like to explore if anyone is interested in keeping this adventure going.
So piggybacking on that answer, so the alternate will be screening at some upcoming film and horror film festivals. What can the viewers expect at these festivals with the film?
It's already done its full festival run, so it won't be screening at festivals anymore. We played at over 24 film festivals around the world. We won 15 awards, ranging from Best Director, Best Picture, Best Sci-Fi Picture, lots of amazing awards, which I'm really grateful for. But now the movie's coming out to everyone to see it. So it's going to be out on September 6th on digital and DVD. So everyone can go buy it, rent it, watch it, see it. There's a DVD that's got special features on it that's coming out. It's got 2 commentary tracks, deleted scenes, some behind the scenes featurettes on the making of the movie. So that's available too, starting on the 6th. So I just hope people get a chance to buy or rent the movie and check it out.
And that's North America. We also got picked up internationally. So as countries pick us up, there'll be press releases on that, but we'll be seen internationally as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So before I go to my final question, I do have to give both of you kudos, because this film does not look a low budget at all. I love how the film looks. It's well edited. One of the things that I like to see, like, it's, if there is VFX, how does the VFX look in the film? And then seeing something that is kind of difficult to do, that it's technically speaking making portals and those type of like VFX, seeing it that it's very crisp, is very you see that it feels real, and how you did the transitions, like you mentioned, with the character Jake going in and out. I gotta say to you guys, kudos. I really did I like the film. Sorry, I have to say it. I like the film. So I hope that everybody that when it comes to DVD and digital, like Alrik said, on September 6th, go ahead and rent it or buy it, because again, it's a very great experience. So my question is, for both of you, is, do you guys have any upcoming projects? Can you give us some details of those projects? because I know that sometimes we sign NDAs, but if you guys can give us like a little bit of details, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, so I shot a movie in New Jersey last winter, just 9 months ago, and Alrik is our co-editor on that, assistant editing. So I brought him on board on that. And I'm actually reading a script right now that Alrik has been doing some consulting on and would be directing for potentially his next movie. So it's still relatively early stages, but we plan on trying to have everything ready in place at the end of this year or early next year. And so I'm just reading the script right now.
Awesome.
What can we say? Are we allowed to say anything about that project?
Sure.
Like a little bit. I don't want to give away too much, but it's a thriller action movie set in we're not exactly like kind of the South or the backwoods of America, basically. And it's got all these different characters who are all after their different things, and they kind of all end up in one place. And it's kind of a big a big exciting action thriller about these nefarious characters. But yeah, I'm really excited. We've been working hard on the script the last couple of weeks, and Jeff's just reading it for the first time now, so I'm really excited to hear what he thinks.
Oh God! If that film actually does happen, I'm excited to watch it when it comes out. So, and I hope to see you guys again. To get to sit down and talk about the film as well. So, Jeffrey, Alrik, thank you very much for giving us this little portion of your time to talk about the alternate. Again, everybody that's watching us is going to be available on September 6th on DVD and digital. So go ahead, rent it or buy it. Like that you guys can enjoy this amazing thriller film and amazing director here as well and producer. So I do hope that I get to see more projects of both of you or other projects upcoming. So thank you very much for joining us here at the Nerdy Basement.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's been a pleasure, man.
Same to you here.